Welcome to Q&As. I'm your host, Marcia Boyles, and today we're going to be talking about support groups here at Green Spring. I'd like to introduce my two guests. I'm always delighted to have these two folks here. This is Kathleen Taylor, who is our social work manager. Welcome.
Hello.
And Sue Franke, who is our social worker, our social worker in neighborhood 2. I have to stop and think, Village Square.
Yes.
Welcome, Sue. I'm
Thank you.
delighted to have both of you here. We're going to be talking today primarily about the social work support groups, and I will mention a few of the resident-driven support groups. We're aware that the hospice group also has a grief support group, which we will not get into today, but we will be concentrating on the social work and the resident-driven support groups. So with that, Sue, shall we start with the support group that you lead? Now this is the, I'm going to have to stop and think of the name. This is the Dementia Support Group for the caregivers.
It is
care
for
partners.
the care partners.
Care partners,
yes.
thank you.
Yeah.
That was a term that I hadn't heard before that you brought up.
Right. Or a lot of people will think of it as the caregivers, but when you think of it as a care partner, it takes into play the fact that it is a joint relationship, and our spouses work together with their companions to make it work. And so the Dementia Support Group really is for that care partner to be able to talk to other care partners here in the community, to make it so that they can talk about some of the concerns that they're having, some of the difficulties, so that they might get some thoughts, some ideas about how to handle some of those situations, but then also to get some affirmation that what they're experiencing is a normal experience, and that some of the frustrations or some of the things that they are feeling within themselves are normal as well, and that it is part of being a care partner. And then we also talk a lot about how to take care of yourself as a care partner, and some of the things that are really important in terms of being able to maintain that daily, the daily schedule that you have to have.
Are most of the caretakers, care partners, spouses?
Yes, they are. In the past, I had a daughter that was coming for a period of time. She's not there now, but it's really open to anybody that considers themselves a care partner. I've also had some residents come that have had family members in other states, or even in the area, that have come just to get an idea of what they're experiencing is normal, and then how they might be able to relate to this person, in that the relationship has really changed with the dementia.
I can understand that. You get into the research aspects, Sue. Are you talking about treatments or anything of that sort with this group?
Not so much. We will talk about some of the avenues that some of the care partners have gone to in terms of seeking advice, seeking medical care, and so it's more of just talking amongst the care partners to get an idea of what they have done. If they come to me with a question, if I don't know the answer at that particular point in time, I'll look into it. I have some resources that have been very helpful for the care partners in terms of how to work with their spouse or their loved one in certain behavioral circumstances, or some of the difficulties they're going through. There's a lot of information that can be brought to the meeting in terms of some of the recommended ways to work with a spouse or work with a loved one to really make it so that it's not such a challenging relationship, and then also so that it becomes more of a partnership rather than a battle.
All right, so really trying to make it doable, in some cases at least.
Yes, and
Now-
then, also talking about the resources that we have right here at Green Spring.
That's what I was going to ask. Now, does that continue then if the individual goes to the memory floor, for example, at Garden Ridge?
It does, because a spouse, even a care partner, even when their spouse is at Garden Ridge, they are still in the throes of a loved one with dementia.
Dealing with the whole issue.
And so
How large a group do you have?
It depends on the month. We do meet on the third Friday of every month. It's down here in Village Square in the classroom from 2 to 3. And we have anywhere from 5 to 10 care partners that come to the group. Any one month, it depends on what's going on and the physical capabilities of both spouses, so it just depends.
Do the individuals ever bring their spouses?
We encourage them to have somebody stay in the apartment with the spouse, or some of the care partners feel that they are able to have the spouse stay in the apartment independently, and that's a safe plan. So it is best for the care partner to come by themselves so that they can feel free to discuss some of the things that are going on. It's a very safe place to talk about the concerns, to talk about what is going well, what is difficult, and to get some feedback from me, to get feedback from the other members of the group.
I can only imagine how important it would be to get that kind of support under those circumstances. It would be very tough to do by yourself.
It is, and it's nice to know that there are others that are going through those same difficulties. And I'll hear a lot, oh yeah, that's it. Yes, I'm feeling that same way, or the same thing is happening, and then trying to figure out how one might look at it in a different light, or handle it a different way, or maintain a little bit more calm in a situation, and some strategies that have worked for others.
Well, Sue, I think that sounds extremely helpful and interesting. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Kathleen, you lead a group, the Parkinsons support group. Is this similar in terms of providing support to the caregivers?
I think it's similar, but there's some differences as well. Ann Talley, another one of the social workers, and I co-facilitate this group. And the Parkinson's group, it's interesting right now because we had sort of hit a lull in the participation for the group, and we're considering whether there was enough interest. So it kind of was starting to slow down a lot, and then all of a sudden, some of the members really got energized and really said, no, we need this group. So it was great because there's like all this motivation now to get the group going again and have it be really robust, and reach out to all the other people in the community that might have Parkinson's, because they see the people that are driving this really see the benefits. So there's a lot of really
well, that's a good thing.
It's great. There's a lot of really good energy right now from the participants. Right now we have between 15 and 20 that are taking an active role. And
now, are those caregivers or the people with Parkinson's?
These are the people
are they both?
They are both. Predominantly people that have Parkinson's, but there are people that come as a couple. So we have all different kinds of groupings of people. But what we've decided is to kind of split it up between the more support function, where people kind of share strategies or talk about their personal experiences, and then other meetings we will do kind of more, as you said, the educational component. There's a lot going on that's new right now in Parkinson's research, and there's some really 2 or 3 organizations that are really very active, that are sending out active websites, sending out a lot of material on the internet. So we're all sharing that, and people are talking about what they're learning.
Are you bringing in speakers occasionally?
We're bringing in resources and speakers as we can. There's the Big and Loud program, I think you're aware of, that has just started through our outpatient therapy.
Now that's with the speech pathologists?
It's part of speech and part is physical.
Oh, that's right, it's a team
There's
approach.
2, yeah. They came and did a meeting for us as well. But actually, the last meeting that we had, one of the best meetings, it was a perfect combination because we started out talking about driving. Someone had brought up an article about driving and some of the problems for someone who might have a Parkinson's diagnosis in driving. And so we talked about, who had sort of stopped driving because of their symptoms and who was still driving, and then just talking in general about what that was like. Nobody likes giving up their car, so they were sharing that. And then also talking about, well, there's other things, there's adjustments that you can make, and one of them is public transportation. And so we're talking about public transportation, and some people are going, oh man, I've never rode the metro before. I don't think I would be able to do that. And so a couple of people that were in the group who are experienced public transportation riders volunteered to take them out on a field trip.
Accompany them?
And just sort of so that they could get a little bit more used to doing it, as opposed to just sort of feeling like, now I can't drive, I can't go anywhere anymore. So it was perfect. It was sharing information, it was people helping one another. It was great, and I love this group. I think that they're going to keep doing that.
So everybody was benefiting in a case like that?
Yeah, when you share information like that, and you kind of feel like, in those cases, maybe somebody that was a little bit more reluctant was able to take the hand, so to speak, of that other person and be able to experience something different that's going to end up having a big difference to them in terms of their quality of life, potentially.
Certainly being able to get out and about is a terrifically important thing.
Huge.
One of the things that the low vision group also does is share strategies and information in terms of coping, and I'm hearing both of you saying that the coping for both the caregivers and probably in some cases the patients, as it would be both with low vision and with Parkinson's, is a good part of this. And I think in a place like this, we have such an advantage in being able to share this kind of information. I mean, I don't know how out in the world one would necessarily be able to do this, probably with difficulty.
Yeah, I mean, I know there are Parkinson's support groups out in the, outside
in the
Green
community,
Spring, yeah, but not as conveniently located, I'm sure. So I think that does make a big difference, and just being able to share experiences for sure. But also, when you, especially I think with the Parkinson's, and I think probably with the low vision a lot, is just there are a lot of resources, there's new things that are coming up all the time, and for people who are maybe out there kind of like on the internet or whatever, looking for more information to be able to bring it back to the group, that's a huge benefit.
Absolutely it is. The third group that the social workers support here is the low vision group, and that's Catherine Hornbeck. Now that I think is probably the largest of the support groups. It has as many as 30 people, or 35 even, at some of the meetings. So that is a big group, and quite active, and doing many of the same kinds of things, Kathleen, that you're talking about in terms of getting research strategies, looking at magnifiers, the various devices that can be assistive as well. One of the most exciting things that's coming out of the low vision group is the fact that clinical trials are starting here locally for macular degeneration. Wow. That they're, for the first time ever, may be a way to reverse the dry damage, which ultimately does lead to blindness. So that is starting in the fall here at the, we think, at the Healthplex, at the Retina Group offices.
Wow,
So,
that is exciting.
It's extremely exciting. It's stem
Yeah.
cell research. So we just talked about this last week at the Low Vision Group. Well, those then are the three main ones that you all are providing. And as I had mentioned at the beginning of the program, there are resident-driven programs as well. And just to mention a few of these, we have seen on the scroll is it Welcome by Bill or what? How is the AA meeting
I think
listed?
It's Friends of Bill.
Friends
right?
of Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kathleen. Friends of Bill, which we see on the scroll, which is the AA group. In addition to that, the PFLAG group is a support group for friends and families of gays and lesbians. What other resident groups? Do we have, Sue, your welcome committee for the newcomers?
I have a group for new residents that have moved in, and I generally send an invitation along to that. It runs on a monthly basis, the first Monday of the month.
Is that every month?
It is every month, first Monday, and it really is just an opportunity for new residents to meet together. And periodically, I will have residents that have been here for a year or two just come, and they will share some of the things that they have found that it's helped them get acclimated to. So it really is a good group for new residents just to help them acclimate to the community and learn about some of the anomalies that we have here in terms of security and the latches and the dining rooms. It's just a good opportunity to connect in that way.
You know, I just learned last week that dining services is now having monthly meeting for newcomers, which I had not been aware of. And apparently that is to teach newcomers all about the dining room services, about the flex plan, all the ins and outs of a pickup of dining at Green Spring. So I thought this was an excellent idea. It started in January. Speaking of newcomers, we also have the newcomers table, which meets every Wednesday at noon at Woodland Skies. And we'll announce here the exciting thing that we're just starting in 2 weeks, which is the Green Spring Tours. Now these will be going every Saturday from 11 to 12, tours of Green Spring, primarily designed for newcomers. But folks who have been here for a while, who still find themselves getting lost, of course, are welcome to come as well. So those will start in on the 18th of April, Saturday, at 11 o'clock in the Village Square lobby. So anybody who is interested in that should be coming to the lobby. We think it'll take about an hour. If anybody would like to stay and have lunch afterwards, that's good too. So that's hot off the press.
I know, that's going to be great.
That is great.
That's a
yes,
great idea.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most challenging things for new residents is just figuring out how to navigate the community. Just to staff as well.
I was going to
It's
say,
a
you might have staff involved in there too.
Do staff find themselves getting lost?
Oh, yeah.
What a confession.
I'm glad we've been here long enough.
Yes, you have. I'm surprised.
But I think what is really exciting here at Green Spring is the resident-run groups that you've spoken about, the PFLAG and the Friends of Bill, and then there's a caregiver circle that meets. There's also a dialysis group that is resident-run. Is that if there is a resident here at Green Spring that feels passionate about starting a group, that we have the resources here through community resources to be able to start a group. And I know in the past we've had a sign language group, and that sort of went by the wayside. But there are so many different interests and capabilities from the residents here that I encourage residents not to be limited to what we have here, but to think outside the box and to know that if they feel that there's something that would be helpful to residents and that they would like to initiate it, that we do have the resources here for them to do that.
Well, very well put, Sue.
Yeah.
Thank you. That
Yeah.
was perfect.
It's-
What would
I
be
would-
the process?
Well, I would just want to add to that too. It's great, that we do have that ability, and I think that there's a couple of ways of looking at support groups. The ones that are purely resident run are wonderful, and we really love that and encourage that. For people that might be interested in having a group but feel that they really would need a facilitator for the group, then that would be something that we would definitely, as social workers, be willing to partner with them too. So there's different ways to look at groups, and so we want to make sure that people don't feel that there's any barriers to doing that. So I think there's probably lots of opportunities for more support groups on campus if there's an interest. But what I would say would be, if people did have a thought about starting another support group, maybe check in with one of the social workers and see whether that's something that we might already have knowledge of. But I think it's just the partnership that we would want to provide, either between community resources or social work, and being able to get those
Depending on the
started.
nature of
Depending
the
on
support
what they were
group.
looking for. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, Kathleen, I think that's a nice invitation to folks. If you have a strong interest in something, talk to either community resources or to one of the social workers. There certainly are people out there who I think would really enjoy and be helped by support groups of various sorts. The resident caregiver support group, I checked yesterday with Joe McKenzie, who has started this group, and she said that the group is about 5 people who come each time. They meet monthly, and I think much like the caregivers group that you have, Sue, mostly it's talking to each other about ways to really to ways to do it better, if it were, and just how are you coping kinds of things. She said that several of the people who are in that group actually are caretaking outside of the community.
Wow.
They have relatives in the area or something like that they're caring for. So that seems to be the focus of that particular group.
Yeah. Well, historically, support groups, we talk about peer support groups, so it's peers supporting one another, and I think that that's like really kind of the ultimate way that we would like to have a support group work, is people gathering the wisdom from one another in terms of their experiences, and really being comfortable sharing those highs and those lows, and really feeling the support and the camaraderie of other people that are experiencing similar situations.
And I think it's a special relationship here at Green Spring, in that everybody has similar living arrangements and similar eating habits and arrangements, and so you share that amongst yourselves. And so you start with a commonality that in other support groups outside of Green Spring you wouldn't have.
That's right.
So we do share this commonality between us, and so to have that bond to start with, it really makes it so that you can support each other even in a better way, because there's a certain understanding that you have. When you talk about dinner is a known quantity, or when you talk about your apartment, it's known, or the hallways, whereas in other support groups you might not have that commonality. So I think that's a big benefit here.
So I hadn't thought about it that way, but of course that would make perfect sense. We all know what the common resources are, and as you're saying, the living habits, and
and interestingly enough, we do have a lot of resources here, and every once in a while somebody will say, "Oh, I didn't realize that." So those are, again, some of the benefits of the support groups, in that you find out things that you may not have known, and so it's it's residents helping each other along with staff saying, have you considered, or you might think about this, even in terms of outside resources, but just all the resources that are available and are some things to look into.
Right, and another part of sort of being closely located in one another is sort of what you were talking about with your newcomers lunch group. We come together for one purpose, but then that allows us to form friendships then that carry over into the community, into other parts of our life. So we might come together initially because of a common concern or interest, but then what do you know? You know, this person is somebody that you just sort of want to hang out with too.
Right.
You know, and that's really the beauty in a community like Green Spring.
Yes, we certainly see that with these groups. The newcomers group, the newcomers lunches, I think, have been a wonderful example of that. They've been going a little longer than 2 years, and the people that started coming early on to those groups, to those lunches, really have evolved into a kind of a clique, as it were, and they're now running the newcomers table themselves.
Right.
So it has really evolved into a close-knit group, which is great fun to watch.
It is, yeah.
Now we will be doing a whole program, Kathleen, on grief support. And this is a Village in Motion, which will be coming up the end of June. It will be you and Crystal Renler. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
I'm not sure.
Who is
I think it's
Rumler.
Rumler.
Rumler, that's correct.
Okay.
And Jim Bell from Pastoral Ministries. And that will be the end of June for a Village in Motion. So we'll talk a good bit about grief support and the actual grief support group that Crystal runs every several months. Well, I see our time is about up here. This has been extremely helpful. Anything that we neglected to say here?
No, I don't know. Well, I would just say anybody that's interested in any of the support groups that we've talked about, they should come on down and try us out. They would be happy, I think, to find out what a good experience it can be.
All right, Kathleen, thank you.
And
Sue?
if residents have question about any of the support groups, feel free to talk with your social worker about it, because we're happy to discuss it, to see if it might be appropriate, or to just help in terms of the time frame or the room that it's in, to be able to help with information.
Well, Sue and Kathleen, this has been super. I've certainly learned a lot, and I think our residents probably will have too.
Hopefully.
I think this is all a good thing. So we will stop now, and let me thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you next month.